Welcome back to Conscious Ground Sound, your source of music reviews for the best music, both past and present. I'm very excited to bring you a review on the new release from Ray LaMontagne called Ouroboros. This is one of the most interesting releases of 2016 within the indie rock, pop, psychedelic genre. Ray LaMontagne brings us more of the exciting psychedelic rock featured on his previous release, Supernova, with a concept album built around the title theme, Ouroboros, which is an ancient symbol depicting a serpent or dragon eating its own tail. The Ouroboros dates as far back to ancient Egypt and is associated with Gnosticism and Hermeticism. It often symbolizes self-reflexivity, introspection, or cyclical nature, especially in the sense of something constantly recreating itself and the eternal return. It can also represent the cycle of birth and death, not unlike the yin-yang symbol of Taoism. The lyrical content and the track names definitely elaborate the Ouroboros theme of death, rebirth, and recreating oneself. Tracks such as The Changing Man and While It Still Beats embody this Ouroboros concept with lyrics that depict death and the shedding of all possessions and struggles, and the exclamation in the final line of the song, "Point me towards the sun." The music itself is a vast distorted landscape that builds in a way that gives an apt sonic depiction of what LaMontagne is singing about. I can picture Hugh Jackman in The Fountain, floating in his orb, sitting in lotus position, heading through space, directly into the sun or distant star. The songs connect and flow into each other like a good concept album should. There's a theme, and this theme cannot be stopped or separated, and therefore flows from one track to the next without interruption, so it's hard to tell where one track ends and another begins. They flow into one another like the Ouroboros symbology. Many of the tracks in this album develop this Ouroboros self-reflexivity theme with an ethereal sound and introspective lyrical content, such as In My Own Way, where LaMontagne sings, "Lock the door, draw the shades, close my eyes, I'm miles away. I'll spend the day in my own way." The rolling guitar lines, along with the lyrical content, lull the listener into a meditative state, which the author himself seems to be describing. This album has a profound implication that relates to the maturity of LaMontagne as a person and a songwriter, while revealing a spiritual dimension that provides respite from the craziness of these times. This album is significant in another light because it marks a collaboration with Jim James from My Morning Jacket as producer for Ouroboros. It also features Seth Kaufman on bass and slide guitar, who is the only carryover musician from Montaigne's previous album Supernova. Jim James invited some musicians who he often collaborates with, namely Kevin Ratterman on Moog, Dan Given on drums, and Dan Dorff on keys and vibes. Alexis Marsh offers some background vocals as well. The Ouroboros tour will feature the actual lineup of My Morning Jacket minus Jim James. This includes bassist Tom Blankenship, drummer Patrick Callahan, guitarist Carl Brommel, and keyboardist Bo Coster. LaMontagne not only brings great musicians for Ouroboros, but he also brings forth many interesting concepts lyrically on his new album. He relates the Buddhist concept of impermanence on In My Own Way, where he sings, "After all is said and done, only here a moment, then the moment's gone. I'll spend the day in my own way." This theme is repeated throughout the album. There is also a simplicity to the album in the mantra-like lyric and sparing musical arrangements. A track that illustrates this simplicity is the standout track of the album, Hey No Pressure. This song is built on a single riff with two chords that is essentially a blues scale played backwards and features the refrain, "Hey no pressure," like a mantra throughout. The riff is funky and soulful, and it works perfectly with LaMontagne's matter-of-fact declaration of self-determination. LaMontagne states, "Anything you want your life to be, it can be. Hey, no pressure." There's a double-edged sentiment, though, as LaMontagne warns, "Be careful of each step you take." And then he obliterates the weight of the burden with the lyric, "It's all an illusion in the end." Hey, no pressure contains a universal empathetic sentiment that makes it immediately relevant to anyone listening, as most songs on the album do. The album also has a heavy feel to it, with the distorted electric guitars, and often sounds like early Pink Floyd, which is never a bad thing if you're like me. The track Another Day gives us another type of rebirth, as LaMontagne talks about the changing of the seasons and the perspective of the observer viewing the beauty of nature. These lyrics give way to a Dark Side of the Moon type instrumental called A Murmuration of Starlings that features a guitar solo, Fender Rhodes, and the Dark Side synth sound. By the end of the album on Wouldn't It Make a Lovely Photograph, LaMontagne makes clear that he has had a rebirth and is right where he belongs in his relationships and as a musician and songwriter. He also makes the exclamation that you are never going to hear this song on the radio. This is the departing irony of such a well-written and well-conceived album. It seems that LaMontagne is well aware that Ouroboros is an artistic statement that might be a departure for some of his fans that prefer the straight soul or folk aspects of his musical past. Ray recently shared some insight on his album. This is a quote from Ray LaMontagne. Ouroboros is an album musically unlike any I've recorded previously. It did not make itself known to me in sections, sessions, or moments carved out of the clutter of everyday life. It presented itself as a simple question: will you follow me? Of course I couldn't say no. I had to follow. What else could I do? I had nothing with which to record the journey that was taken. The album is merely an attempt to recreate from memory the landscapes, the colors, the sights and sounds that were experienced. I only thank God for the vividness of those experiences and for the ease of their recollection. I realize that my invitation for you to listen, I am in fact asking something of you as well, for listening is not purely passive act. Listening takes effort. To listen is to participate. There can be no conversation without one who is willing to listen. And so I both invite you to and ask if you might sit. Quiet your surroundings, quiet your mind, and listen as I present to you the question that was first presented to me. Will you follow me? Yours, Ray LaMontagne. I hope Ray LaMontagne considers to follow the voice of his muse because he's creating great music and he need not worry about losing the interest of his audience, because I for one am ready to follow a voice of true artistic expression, because he really is one of a very few that hold such high musical integrity in the mainstream music world. I will also be playing his songs on my radio show with regularity, and I highly recommend Ray LaMontagne's Ouroboros as one of the best albums of the year. This has been another review from Conscious Ground Sound. Subscribe here and follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for updates and continued information on new releases, classic albums, and significant happenings in the world of music.